This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. I always love getting together with different people on this program and learning what they do, but more importantly, seeing how we take so much for granted in our everyday lives. When you walk into a store, an office building, an apartment building, there's so much work that goes behind that, especially in terms of setting up the interior, setting up the look, the vibe, and all of that. We're going to talk with somebody who has been doing that for decades and has a team of developers, architects, builders. She is the woman behind MSA Interiors, and it's so great to have Marcy Sagel join us on the program today. How are you doing?
Pretty good, Steve. Thanks for having me on the show.
I am so looking forward to learning this whole process. I've talked to interior designers that focus mostly on residential, but never so much on the commercial side. Why did you, back in the day, pivot over to that side?
That's a really great question. So I always thought I'd go into residential, and I love residential, and I do residential when it's for development clients or friends. And the reason I decided to go into commercial design is because they're easier to work with. And the scale and level of design that we work on is very, very large scale. And I found that very intriguing. So I thought that, hotels, large scale apartment buildings, large scale buildings, I thought, wow, you can space plan that and really, really get creative. That kind of intrigues me. So I kind of went off the path, and I had a client that was an architect that asked me if I would work on a project with him. And I said, I have no experience in this. And he said he would guide me. And he guided me through my first multifamily project. And that's how I got into it.
Wow. Are you also, since what we're talking about here, kind of a bigger picture, very much into real estate investing and that kind of thing too?
So yes, I love real estate investing. I think, I work with so many development clients, and everything from REITs to family, multi-generational real estate developers, and speak on a lot of shows on real estate development and how to get your best ROI. And so, yes, the answer is yes.
It intrigues me. I'm going to share with you that
Mhm.
my aunt, back in the day, where I grew up in the Port Jeff, Long Island, New York area, she was kind of a real estate trailblazer back then. Not a lot of women were involved in that. And she always said to me, get your real estate license, get your real estate. And I never did. I was like, hey, I'm going to go party with my friends on the weekend or whatever. And now I look back and guess what I plan to do this winter? Get my real estate license, just because I'm kind of intrigued about it. And I have lots of friends who are in real estate, commercial, residential, and all of that. But there's something there, and I can't even put my finger on it. But I just love the new start for so many, whether it is residential, whether it is commercial. Do you get that vibe too?
I'm obsessed. I look at real estate every single day, both commercially and residentially. I look at it all over the country. I love buying real estate, and I love investing in it because I find the biggest investment dollars you get come from real estate. I have the ability to redo any space. So
Mm,
for me, it's kind of like a little bit of a built-in, lift. Why not?
100%. And side note, I also do marketing. And somebody came to me a month ago and couldn't sell a house. They had a real estate involved. They were the homeowner. It was on the market for a year. And that also reflects in the listing, which is a negative. And I did with my team some social media on it and had it in contract in 3 days. Kind of proud of that. It just kind of came about. Like, all right, maybe there is something there. It's not all about the MLS, but I digress here.
Yeah, no, I think you can make any space look great, and people want to walk in and they want to feel like they can move right in. So you focus on the big higher end spaces like the kitchen and the master bathroom, and you kind of like work your way through that larger great space and opening it up. And, you get an idea of what people want and what sells. And, I started doing it a long time ago and picked real estate for both of my brothers over the course of many decades, including commercial spaces for one of my other brothers who's an entrepreneur. And I just go in and my brother's like, is this the right space? And I'm like, no, this is the right space. This is exactly what you need. And both of them, listened to my guidance and bought these commercial spaces and bought residential spaces. And it's been great ever since.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So on the design side of things,
Mhm.
you got so much going on there. Whether it's an apartment building, whether it's a commercial space. Do you have any favorites, when you get a call and you see, oh, they're looking for that. Oh, you love doing what you do in all areas, but are there a few, like some interior designers will look at certain rooms? I love doing the kitchen. I love working on living rooms. Anything stand out for you?
Um, for multifamily, it would be I love doing all of the amenity spaces and getting really creative with a lot of those amenity spaces and coming up with new amenity spaces that are interesting and unique. And some of those are doing a podcast room, doing Zoom rooms, doing little one person, sitting areas that, can turn into like a hangout room for the whole day. Um, During COVID, apartment buildings got really creative with creating these sort of like little sort of carve out spaces in the amenities so that people could get out of their apartments. And I think, really and truly now people want to feel like they can, if you're living in New York and you want to get outside, you need outside amenities as well. So we focus as hard as we focus on the amenities inside, and I love that. I love creating like a park-like setting on the outside.
Mm.
On the top of a roof, we might do a walking or running track, or a fire pit area, or just barbecue areas where people can actually have their own private little barbecue and area for a table. Just sort of unique little carve out spaces that we're creating for people that are living in a larger unit building that might want to have that sort of privacy or uniqueness within the building.
Do you love the fact that when you design in this larger capacity, that you have to make it a goal for longevity? There's going to be a lot of people sitting on that couch. There's going to be a lot of people using that amenity. Does that drive you as well, where you have to make sure the quality is there, the durability is there, because it has to last a period of time, and for a lot of people?
So one of the first questions I ask a client when we sit down at the table with our team, when we're just doing our kickoff, is this a long-term hold? It's always the question that I ask, because a lot of projects are unique where they're bought knowing that it's going to be a long-term generational hold. We have clients that have had apartments for 60 plus years and are constantly every year building new apartment buildings and still maintaining the ones they've had for 50 or 60 years. So we ask that question because it does matter. We like to design with the word long-term hold in mind, because we think the finishes are going to be more steady and hold up to the wear and tear, and all of the furniture that we pick is going to hold up to wear and tear. But while we're designing, we really try to keep in mind what's the flow of the building. And part of that is we look at all of the package delivery systems now. So everyone's getting packages online. So 10 years ago, we had a very small package room, if any at all. It would get thrown into the leasing office of an apartment building. Now we have these giant package rooms that you get a text that says, hey, you got a package. And then you scan in with a code and you get your package out. These different package systems and mail systems have been evolving every single year. So while we're designing, we need to keep in mind that that's going to change over the course of time. And we need to be able to kind of expand that, make it put a system in, a package system in. Some people are using Amazon lockers. Some people are using, there's a million different systems out there.
Sure.
So we try to make sure that we're designing with the mindset of long-term hold.
Wow. And like you say, 5 years ago, this wouldn't even have been on your radar. Yeah, the mailroom, and then leave it at that. Is there a rule of thumb shelf life on commercial design? Let's say you design an area in an apartment building or like a professional building, let's say an open space or a common area. It's because I often hear too, restaurants have a certain shelf life. Sometimes you have to reinvent the restaurant. Bars and clubs, when they were bigger back in the day, they were only around for about 4 years. Then you had to reinvent it. Is there a rule of thumb with commercial interior design?
So typically, amenity spaces have a shelf life between 5 and 10 years, we like to say, but need a refresh within a 3 to 5 year period on maybe some of the fabrics, if you're not picking the right fabrics, or if you haven't chosen furniture that is commercially graded and commercially rated, then yes, it's going to be shorter. So we have a lot of expertise in the manufacturers, and we know what holds up. So we're going to typically specify materials that are going to hold up longer than the average of the 3 to 5 years. We like ours to last a lot longer. And what we like to say is you'll do a refresh with color. So we might do a wall covering with a mural or a wall covering that we create into a custom piece of art. And instead of making it something that's, maybe like a $20,000 wall, we might make it a $3,000 wall that we know we're going to replace in 2 to 3 years, give it a facelift there. And then we're going to just update a little bit of the pillows and the fabric and that kind of thing. So what we say to our team of designers, don't pick the color that's now. Everybody is working in the color that's now. We're picking colors that are future, colors that are going to be a longer stay, have a longer shelf life, and then we can sprinkle in the colors of now within the pillows and the kind of accent colors that we're going to be changing over the course of time. So that's kind of my thought process.
What are the colors that are now?
If I see one more mint green and terracotta.
Yes, the green thing is big now.
Everything is like minty green and emerald green and terracotta, and it's sort of the colors of the moment. And, I don't want to just see the colors of the moment, because by the time the job gets installed, the colors of the moment aren't going to be current. So if you want to sprinkle those in throughout some accessories and things, I'm fine with that. But I don't think it's a good idea to be picking tile, which you're not going to replace in 5 years, in those colorways.
What would be a future color?
So future colors right now, we're looking at a lot of neutrals, and we're looking at a lot of like navies. So that's sort of the color coming up: neutrals, navies, those kind of color directions. Very different than the emerald green and terracotta.
Yeah, it's so funny when you say mint green. It takes me back to the 90s when seafoam was in.
Yeah.
It's amazing how colors can take you into different areas, just, if you're aware of it. When we say neutral, are we talking about, beiges? I don't want to sound lame, but I'm trying to describe it. Those types of colors.
I assume neutrals, and I forget everyone needs to understand what those neutrals are. So neutrals could be a straw color, the color of straw.
Sure.
Okay. Or some deeper, like caramel colors. With those, to me, are still neutrals, and that's the direction with the navy that it's going in for this next year. So those, to me, are sort of the neutrals with some lighter colors mixed in.
Yeah, those two, they really work well. You could use one as an accent wall. As you can tell, I like color. Yeah, that wall's orange right there. This one back here is sort of a gray. It goes with a logo I have, but I'm not afraid. Let's play. Do you feel that when you design a commercial space, it's almost like it's an art project that people are going to see? What do I mean by that? you do let's say a residential, that's all good. This is going to be seen by a lot of people. It's almost like having a painting on a wall in a museum that a lot of people are going to view, i.e., your design. Do you look at it that way?
I do, because it's a canvas that we are creating from scratch. And basically, we have a market audience that we're trying to achieve. And we have a lot of competition because there's apartment buildings, like large scale, high level apartment buildings and condominium buildings everywhere.
Hmm.
So you're competing with all of the neighboring properties. And yeah, you have a specific look and a specific direction from the beginning that we embark on from a marketing standpoint and from a market audience. So, for instance, I teach a lot of real estate developers, masters in real estate. I'll be a guest lecturer, so to speak. And I come in and they know nothing about how to go in the direction of picking the creative part of the product. So basically, what we do is we kind of put this whole little program together where they're looking at all of the competitors and what their amenities look like. They're looking at their rent prices. They're looking at, you know, how rented up are they? What's their percentage of rent up? Is it 90%? Is it 75%? And how long have they been opened? Because that does matter, because everything is sort of fresh and new. So when we're designing, we want to decide what direction as a team. So we're picking that direction based on all of the competitors in the area, the level of finishes that we're going to put into the building, and the rents that they want to achieve. So it's really important to go in the right direction, because I've seen so many buildings, you walk in and they look super dated or super so artistic that they don't appeal to a larger audience from a rentable standpoint.
Sure.
And the uniqueness is so unique that it's almost like an impediment. So we want to make sure that we're going to achieve a better market, rentable space when we're designing it. So it's really about teaching the whole group that's going to be working together and making the decisions. And sometimes the groups are extremely large. We have the property management group, we have the developers, all of the developers who are putting money into the project are sitting at that table making a decision, and they all have personal design decisions. One person might say, I can't stand green. And the other person says, oh no, I want green. And so you have to work with all of these different personalities in order to achieve that look. But ultimately, we want the building to lease up as quickly as possible.
This is what the rest of us don't realize, the ROI. It's not, well, let's just make a nice little space. It's comfortable, cozy, and has some amenities. No, it's being intentionally done to be competitive with the other buildings around. How did this all happen for you, Marcy? Give us your journey.
So I got very interested in interior design at a young age. My mother had a different interior designer pretty much yearly, working on some aspect of our house. I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland. It's a conservative town. My mother had very modern taste back then. And so that was always very interesting and unique. And so I would come home and I would look at all of the plans that the interior designers would put together. And I just fell in love, like passionately fell in love with it at a very, very young age. So that's how I started, and continued to go to school, and have been an interior designer, obviously, for 3 decades at least, and decided to go off into the commercial realm of it, because I felt like that was a direction that I could do a lot more good. I could really make my mark in commercial interior design and still continue to do residential when I felt like it. So I still get to do what I love residential. Don't get me wrong. You can be so creative, and working with someone individually or as a couple is really kind of fun to create that look. But 95% of what we do is commercial and multifamily.
I have to tell you, anytime I've owned a house or did any renovations, I always looked at it as a commercial space. What do I mean by that? When I renovated a backyard like 7 years ago, I looked at it as, this is a resort. The furniture and fabrics have to last. It has to have that layout as a resort, even though it's not. But or I'd look at even decorating, even put up decorations for the holidays. I think Disney, how would Disney do it? And maybe that's a weird way to look at things, but I try and look at it in a bigger way as opposed to, well, I'm just, putting some furniture out in the backyard because it's got to last. And also I want a vibe, when people come over, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a personal canvas. I can figure out the direction that I want to go in. And, I try to do a different project in my own house every single year.
Hmm.
And what I say is it evolves. And people ask me questions all the time, like I have a lot of collections, a lot of art. I have a lot of antiques that I have collected over the course of time that I mix with modern art because I love modern art. And people ask, like, how do you start a collection? What inspires you to do that? And I tell people the same thing. Art is personal. Art is a journey. You grow your collection over years, and it has sentimental value along with the visual value. So, it's the same thing with furniture. It's the same thing inside, and it's the same thing outside. It evolves over the course of time. Um, you know, we don't do that reveal because reveals don't happen instantly. People don't realize that. It takes time to create a space that's really nice looking. And so it evolves over a period of time. And so what I'm saying is you layer it up, you add things, you live in the space, you figure out what you need, you figure out what you don't need, and you grow your taste over time. And anyone who's ever done a house will tell you their taste now is not what it was when they first bought their first house. It's very different.
Very different. Yes.
Yeah.
As you say it, I'm scanning and I'm now at the point where I sold that last house and I'm in between houses right now trying to make a decision where I want to be and,
Yeah.
they're inside in the market and everything. I've decided, or I felt in that journey, minimal is good. Like it feels so, to purge all that stuff and kind of
Yeah.
start fresh, if you will. It's kind of liberating. We think we need all this stuff, but we really don't. it's, it's what a storage locker is for. And then granted, have paintings and things like that. I'm curious, when you refresh your living space, Marcy, do you change up the artwork just to give it a different vibe?
So I have a lot of art that feels really, really comfortable for me. Large scale pieces that I've kind of lived with over the years that feel like a part of me now.
Hmm.
So I don't change the art in my living room as much, but I do change it in the rest of my space. If that makes any sense.
Sure.
I I like moving it around, but I don't typically move it around in my like more formal living room.
Isn't it amazing if you just take this object and put it in another spot and maybe move a couple of things around? It's got a whole different vibe and energy to it.
Oh yeah, and the same thing for lighting.
Mm.
There's so many advances that have come out with lighting,
Yep.
and if you just change the the lumens of light in your house, even just on one room, one floor, whatever it is, if you just change that to a softer light and put it on a dimmer, you're going to like shock yourself because it's going to be such a huge change. It feels remarkably like a different space. And I mean, I'm in the business and I know this, and it still took me a long time to do it in my house. And when I finally did it, I'm like, what took me so long? This is like a game changer.
All right. I did the same exact thing in my bedroom. Everything is hi hats, hi hats, hi hats. And then, then I just put a lamp on my
Yeah,
nightstand on both of them. And I even
right.
have it on an app. So I don't even have to reach over. I just click
That's
and,
perfect.
and what a warm, cozy, like I get into bed, I'm like, yeah, I'm a king, as opposed to having a spotlight on you from the hi-hat. You are so refreshing to talk to, and just your vibe and your passion, just and energy just comes shining through. You love what you do.
I do. I
Mm.
definitely do. I'm guilty. I do.
There's nothing wrong with that. This is your purpose. What's your website, Marcy? What's the best way to find you?
It's msainteriors.com.
And you're available. Somebody's got a question, even if somebody's working on a big building project, whatever it might be, they can reach out.
Yeah, there you can send us a message right on the website, and either myself or Mary Beth usually respond to any questions that we get, and we're happy to answer anything that you might have.
Great talking with you today. Looking forward next time we get together. There's so much to talk about. This never gets boring for me, ever. It's fun. And I appreciate it. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me. Look
We'll be
forward
right
to our
back.
next time.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.